Hi everyone. Today I'm talking about when INFJ intuition doesn't work. In my last video, I talked about non-intuitive INFJs, and I got a lot of messages after that video. A lot of people said, oh my gosh, this is me. I didn't know there was a name for it. I knew that I had trouble accessing my intuition and trusting my intuition, but I'm so glad to hear that I'm not alone. I'm not the only INFJ out there that is experiencing this or that feels this way. So this week or this day, I'm doing a follow-up video when intuition doesn't work for INFJs, which is a little bit of a different thing than being a non-intuitive INFJ. Because the non-intuitive INFJs tend to feel like they actually can't access it. They can't get to it. They feel like they're intuitive, but that's not a function that they can really use in everyday life, and they don't know how. For some INFJs, they do feel their intuition coming through. They do feel like they're getting flashes, they're getting hits, they're getting information, and they do want to listen to that, but they're really having trouble trusting it. So it's much more of a trust issue than a can't access issue. And it's usually because these INFJs feel like they've been burned in the past by their intuition. I've had this come up in many of a past class that I've done where people have said, I want to trust my intuition. I really want to because I know that it's valuable. I know that this is one of my strongest functions, but I've been burned by it in the past. I feel like my intuition has led me astray or my intuition didn't warn me. I hear this a lot from INFJs who got into relationships with narcissists or toxic people, energy vampires, or they got into a toxic situation like a workplace, right? Like a job that was horrible for them, caused them a lot of stress, a lot of damage, and ultimately ended up in burnout. These INFJs will say, you know, I really don't feel like I can trust my intuition because in these past experiences, it led me astray. It didn't warn me off of this person or this thing or this job. It should have come in loud and clear and said, stop doing that. So the truth is, almost all of the time, the person's intuition did come in. And once I start working with them and we start unpacking that, they'll look back and say, oh, I did get this message. I did know something was off or something was wrong. This is much more than a red flag. A red flag is some sort of external behavior that the person does or the situation presents that we can actually take to a third party and say, you know, hey, I started dating this person and then they said this thing or they did this thing. And a third party would say, oh yeah, that's a red flag. Like they're being possessive or they're being bullying or they're being abusive, right? Or like I went in for this job interview and they asked me these questions and it seemed inappropriate. And a third party would say, oh yeah, you're right. Those questions definitely are inappropriate. That's a red flag. So that's not intuition, right? That's something on the surface that pretty much anyone could see if they were in the situation or if it was explained to them, they would agree, yeah, that's a red flag. Intuition is something much more subtle and something deeper. So a lot of the time, we're on the first date, we're in the job interview, and on the surface, it seems like nothing's wrong, right? The questions aren't inappropriate, the person's being very polite. There's nothing that we could put our finger on, nothing concrete, that we could take to a third party and say, hey, this thing happened, what do you think? Is this a red flag? If we were talking to a third party about the situation, all we could say is, they were perfectly pleasant. They seemed very nice. You know, they asked me this question and this question, which seemed totally normal, right? But underneath that, that's where the intuition comes in, where even though on the surface, the situation may have seemed normal, or the person may have seemed perfectly pleasant, something's going off with our intuition, alarm bells saying, this isn't normal. There's something off here. There's something weird. I'm getting a cold feeling from this person. I'm getting a not good feeling. My stomach's clenching up. Like, stay away from this person, right? Those are the feelings that we usually override because they're subtle and because they're underneath the surface. So when we're on that first date or we're in that job interview and we want so badly for it to go well, right? Like maybe we really have wanted to meet a partner or we really want this job or we really want a steady paycheck, right? So we really want this situation to be a good situation for us. So when those little subtle feelings come up, that little voice that says, something's wrong here, like something's off, that's when we push it away and that's when we override it and we say, No, everything they're saying is nice. All of the questions are appropriate. There's no reason for me to be having these feelings. I'm the crazy one. I'm overreacting. I'm reading into this. I'm making something up. I'm the one who can't be trusted. And then later, when it does unfold in a way that, oh, this is a toxic job, this is a toxic person, like I am now in a relationship with a narcissist, we tend to look back and say, my intuition led me astray. Like I thought everything was okay. Why didn't my intuition speak up and warn me? Our intuition did speak up. We overrode it. We didn't want to listen. Intuition does not usually yell. Sometimes it will. In life-threatening situations, yes, sometimes the voice of your intuition will come in very loud, very strong, very clear. But a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times it is that subtle voice, or it's a subtle feeling, right? But it doesn't come in like bells ringing or trumpets or anything like that. So we'll look back and we'll sort of misremember how the situation went and say, yeah, I didn't get any red flags. Like if something was wrong, shouldn't I have like seen these red flags? Shouldn't my intuition have spoken up very loudly, very clearly, and warned me off of this person? And we don't often pause and really unpack our feelings, especially if we're not really in touch with our feelings. If, as I mentioned in my last video, we were raised in a very logical household where emotions were to be feared, nobody really talked about emotions, we definitely didn't learn how to tune into the subtle vibrations of ourselves, our intuition. We're not well versed in that. We don't have a skill set in that. It's going to seem baffling to us that these little things came in and we didn't pick up on them, right? We're going to not remember that we had that subtle feeling and we pushed it away because we wanted the job so badly, or we wanted to find a mate so badly that we overrode our own inner, small, quiet, still voice, right? A lot of times we forget that. So when I work with students who come to me and they say, I really want to reconnect with my intuition, but I also can't trust my intuition because in the past it's led me astray, that's when we start doing this work of unpacking what actually happened there. What did your intuition say to you? What did you say to yourself? Did you talk yourself out of the intuition? Because I see that so commonly. Another part of this is that we tend to assume or expect that intuition will work in a certain way. We really want intuition to make logical sense. This is one of the big sticking points I see with people working with their intuition. We really want it to make logical sense for a few different reasons. We want it to make logical sense for us so that we feel safe. Like, oh yes, this all adds up, right? Like all the numbers add up in this column. This course is safe to pursue. This all makes logical sense. So we want to feel safe. We also want to feel like if we explain this to someone else, they're not going to think we're foolish. And so we're not going to think we're foolish inside our own heads, right? Because we tend to judge ourselves based on what we think other people would think. And we've all had those thoughts. Well, if so-and-so could see me now, or if other people knew what I was doing or what I was thinking, they would all think I was crazy, or they would all think I was an idiot, right? So that comes up a lot with intuition, is this fear of embarrassment, this fear of like self-consciousness, this doesn't make sense. I couldn't explain it to anyone else. If I tried, they would think I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. And that's when self-doubt comes in, because we want things to be lined up. However, with intuition, things don't usually line up in a clear A, B, C, D way like that. A lot of times your intuition is not going to make logical sense, not in the moment. It almost always makes logical sense later. Sometimes that's next week. Sometimes that's next month. Sometimes that's years down the road. But in hindsight, when you look back, you'll say, oh, now I realize why I got that intuition, or why I was getting that image in my head, or this all makes sense now, right? A lot of times when working with intuition, people who are really stuck on it being logical and making sense, they'll almost always ask me for steps. Like, what are the logical steps I can take, or actionable steps? I've heard that a lot. I really want actionable steps to learn how to work with my intuition. When somebody says actionable steps, I can tell they're still in that logic-based mindset of, I have to make this make sense, and I have to make it make sense in a way I can explain to other people. Intuition is not it doesn't come from that realm. It doesn't come from this concrete reality where everything makes sense through your five senses. It's much more like the world of dreams, when you're explaining a dream to someone else and you can say, I felt this so strongly in the dream. I was crying and I couldn't stop crying. Or I was so happy, I was euphoric, or I had this big epiphany in the dream. Or I saw that because this person showed up and they were dressed in this way, I knew this truth about them. To us, it all makes sense. To us, we have experienced that. We have felt those emotions in our body. We felt the reality of the dream in our own body. To the other person, it does sound a lot of times like something crazy. It does sound like a mashup of a lot of different things that don't make sense to them. And so when someone tells you about their dream, a lot of times, you politely nod and say, wow, that's really interesting, but it doesn't mean anything to you. It's the same with intuition. So if we really want to get serious about working with our intuition, connecting with our intuition, listening to our intuition, we have to get serious about trusting ourselves and not needing that outside validation from other people, not needing actionable steps, not needing it to be logical or for it to make sense or for it to be something else that we can explain to other people, because it's not a math equation. Intuition just doesn't work that way. Intuition is its own thing, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense in the moment. So you really have to learn how to work with trust, and it is a practice. It takes a lot of time. I'm going to be teaching on this topic, all about this topic, all the different facets of this topic, in a free class this Saturday, February 17th, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern over Zoom. Everybody who registers, every single person who registers will get access to this free class. And if you can't make it live, that is completely okay. It will be recorded. You will get the video replay the next day in your email. You will have lifetime access to the video replay. So it's a win-win for everyone. If you can be there, if you can't be there, whatever, please sign up. Please make sure you get your name in so you can get that video replay. And if you attend live, you'll also get the video replay. Everybody gets the video replay. So please sign up for this free class Saturday, February 17th. It's just a couple days away. If you have questions, you can email me, lauren@laurensapala.com. Please also sign up for my newsletter. You'll get notifications about this class and everything that's going on with it, and also new upcoming classes in the future. I'm really excited for this free class. It's called INFJ and INFP Intuition, because I get so many questions from INFJs and INFPs all the time, daily, on the daily in my email. How do I work with my intuition? How do I trust my intuition? I feel cut off from my intuition. How do I explain my intuition to other people? Should I be with someone who is intuitive or non-intuitive in a relationship? How does that work? All sorts of questions. So I'm hoping that in one big class, I can kind of get all of those questions answered and also do some really deep teaching on the subject of intuition. There's some good stuff out there, but there's also some misleading stuff out there. So I'm hoping to also correct a lot of the misleading things that you tend to hear about intuition online out there in the world, especially for INFJs and INFPs who have a really unique way of connecting with our intuition that's not understood by the majority of the population. Let's be real. That's really a big part of this, is that we're such a rare part of the population that when we try to verbalize what's going on for us, or we try to explain, hey, this is a really big part of me, or this is something that I really need to do, this is a core strength, other people just don't get it. And that lack of validation can really hurt us, and it can make us feel so isolated and alone. So that's another perk of joining this free class. You will meet some other INFJs and INFPs in real time, and you can interact with them in the chat, and you'll see them interacting. I always get new people to my classes who say, I feel like I've come home. I can't believe that these other people exist. I never knew anyone else out there felt like me, thought like me. This is crazy. This is so cool. So please come join the free class, INFJ and INFP Intuition, happening this Saturday. Link is below for sign up. Thanks so much, everyone, and hopefully I will see you there.